Okay, I guess we can start. Good evening, everyone. My name is Dima. Today I will tell you about classes, about modules, we will touch object-oriented programming a little bit, and in the end I'll tell you about blocks, procs, lambdas, and other features of Ruby. So, if you have any questions, while I will do a lot of live programming, if you have any questions, just raise your hand or just interrupt me and ask your question. It would be much more productive than if you collect your questions till the end. So, as I said, let's start from classes and modules in Ruby, and maybe somebody already knows what class mean, what module mean. Anybody from any language? Like you probably have experience in .NET, C#. No? Yeah, go ahead. Okay, yes. Class is template for an object, and yeah, let's check it in real life. First of all, as I said, I'll do a lot of live programming, and let's create a class in Ruby, and let's create a cat class. It's as simple as like this. And yeah, indeed, if we have class, we can create an object of this class, and class would be like a template for this object. But Ruby also has modules, and module has different syntax. It's not a class, and if we want to create an object, if we want to create a module, we use a special word module. And the difference between classes and modules in Ruby is that we can create object of a class, and let's check it that I tell you truth. We can create objects of classes, and module is a different thing. For example, if we try to create an object from our module, we will get an error, and that's like by design. We should not be able to create objects from module. But both classes and modules can have different methods. For example, if we can add a method touch to our cat, and when we touch cat, it says meow. We can add methods for our runner. For example, if we tell it run, it run away. Both classes and modules can have methods, but the difference is that for our cat we can create object and then use the method we just created. I'm creating a cat object, and then I touch it. And as I said, we cannot create an object from our module. But why do we need a module then? No, I would say it's not like interfaces. If you mean interfaces like in Java, and yeah, we will touch it a little bit later. But in yes, we can use module as a namespace. But yeah, and we also will talk about it in a few minutes. But the main I think the main purpose of modules is to be a collection of methods. For example, our module runner has one method run, and it may have many more methods. But for now, let's have it. Let's make it like this, and then we can reuse those collections of methods. For example, we can extend our class by this module, and it's not extend like inheritance, if you are familiar with inheritance, but it's more like mixin. For example, we can include our module in our class cat, and what happens is when we include our runner module to our class cat starts to have all the methods that module have. Let's quickly check it. Again, we can touch our cat, but now our cat can run. So the collection of methods is the first purpose of Ruby modules. The second thing is, I don't know your name, but you said modules can be namespaces, and well, it's true. We can create a module, for example, zoo, and put our class cat into this module. It's as simple as this. When we reload our code, and if we try to create an object from our cat class, it will no longer. It should. Well, okay. Let me reload our IRB. If we try to create an object from our cat, it will no longer work, because our cat is now lies kind of inside our module called zoo. And now, if we still want to create new objects of our cat, we have to use the namespace. Yeah, this is the second purpose of Ruby modules. Is it clear?
Can we override modules method?
Can we rewrite? Yes, we can. We can, and let's. Too lazy. Yeah, we can rewrite modules methods in our classes. As you probably noticed, our modules and our classes have methods, and let's move to the object-oriented programming. we all need methods for to do some logic, of course, and our methods. Now, let's start from different things. Let's talk about object-oriented programming, and that's like everything about objects. You probably heard about three main things of object-oriented design or object-oriented programming. Do you know like three main words? Everybody make jokes of them. What are they? Who knows? Yes, inheritance, polymorphism, encapsulation. Yeah, that's true. Let's start and talk a little bit about encapsulation. Who knows what does it mean? Like for our code. Let's have our get class. What does it mean? What does encapsulation mean for our code? I wouldn't say that. As like for me, encapsulation, or like how I understand, and I believe you should understand this the same way. Encapsulation means that we can contain data and logic in our objects, and by saying data and logic, I mean that we can have variables in class in our objects and methods. And we already know that we can add methods to our classes, and let's see how we can add some variables. In Ruby, if we want to store any variables or any data in our classes or in our objects, we can use variables called instance variables. And instance is, do you know what does instance mean? It's like when we create object of a class, we call this object as instance of the class. So let's create let's create an instance variable, and I'll create it in our, well, every class has a special method called well, constructor or initializer, and we Ruby calls this initializer when we instantiate our object. When we create our object using .new method, initializer is called. And initializer, we can do any like initial setup we need. And for example, I want to create a variable in our constructor or in our initializer. And Ruby has a special syntax for instance variables, and this syntax looks like this. We use add symbol and then name of variable. For example, I'll create a variable n. We still have a run method in this class, and we can let's do it like this. Do you understand what I just did? So we have a variable n. When we call a method run, we change this variable and output a string. Let's check how it works. when I create an object from cat class, our initializer is called. Let's check that it's called. In case you don't trust me, and reload our file. It's not. Yeah, it is called. I'm not crazy. I still know Ruby. It is called, and our IRB shows that our instance now has a instance variable n. It's very useful thing for debugging. Let's try to make our cat run. Defines the local variable method n. Yeah, it's true. Do you understand what this error mean? What does it mean? Yes, it's true. I forgot add symbol. Yeah, and now our cat can run. That's what we call encapsulation. We can store in our object data, means any variables, and logic, like run method. Let's talk about inheritance. What does inheritance mean? Yes, we can get properties, we can get methods of a parent class in our like children class. Let's create something that we can test. For example, we have cat, and maybe we want to have a, I don't know, fox. And we want to have a fox, and fox also can run if we ask it to run, and if we want to make our fox to run, the easiest thing we can do is just copy our logic to the fox, something like this. Both our classes cat and fox, they need to initialize our n variable and then increase it in our run method. But this is not ideal solution. We kind of copy paste our code, and for example, if I no longer want to see it is called when I create an object, I for example need to delete this line. Oops. I need to delete this line twice for our fox class and for our cat class. And if I want to change our run method, it also I also will need to change it twice. In order to simplify this, we can use inheritance. For example, we create a class called animal. All animals need to remember how many times they run away from us. And let's then initialize our n variable in the animal class, and we can inherit our cat class and our fox class from the animal class. The syntax for inheritance is like symbol less than we put after our class name, and we write our class name, then less than, and then our parent class. Let's check that it works. New, it still instantiates and it still has n variable. If you make it run, it runs. Good question. Can we inherit models? What do you think? Yes, we cannot inherit from our models, and indeed, sometimes it's better to use our models for sharing our logic. Right now, we also, our cat and our fox also has they have a run method which is like very like identical. So we can move this method to the parent class. They still will be able to run. That's one way to share logic or to share methods between our classes. And another way would be to create a module, as you said. For example, we can create a module runner. Def run puts away. And instead of inheriting from our like parent animal class, we can we call it mixin. We can mix in our runner module to our cat class, for example, and the same for the fox. Yes, we can. Yes, we can inherit and then we can include runner. So but we need inheritance not only for sharing our logic or sharing our methods, but also when you inherit from a parent class, it kind of tells us that both those objects has something similar, and that's how we approach the last word of OOP. We already talked about encapsulation. We already talked about inheritance. Let's discuss what does polymorphism mean. Who has idea what does it mean? Why do we need polymorphism? Yes, technically it's correct. Yes, one definition, multiple implementations, and in strong type, in how to say it? Let's quickly show you what I mean. For example, our our like abstract animal, when we touch our abstract animal, it run away, right? If we try to approach any wild animal, it's like it will run away. Wild animals scary of people. Let's keep it a bit simple. Run away. But if fox is a wild animal, but cat is not wild animal, and we can kind of redefine the touch method of our parent class in our like child class cat. Touch purse. Fox. Let's check that fox is a wild animal. Yeah, when we touch our fox, it runs away. But for cat, we redefined the logic of touching it. It purrs instead of running away, and in different languages, in like strong typed languages such as Java, for example, we need this inheritance in order to pass our, we have C object and we have F object. If we want to pass the C or the F object to some function or to some method in Java, we need to specify the type of this object. And like if you want to operate with cat and foxes, we can define that our method receive an object of any of those two classes. But well, I probably talk a lot, but let me show you. For example, are you familiar with Java or with like any strong type language? With Java? Yes, you probably did some labs. For example, in Java, like it would be something like in touch fox. We would write code like this, and when we write code like this, we can pass fox objects to this touch method, but we cannot pass cat objects to this method. So in order to pass any kind of object, any kind of animal to this touch method in Java, we would inherit both cats and foxes from animal class and then specify animal type in our touch method. Luckily, we don't need to do this in Ruby because we never specify what type of variable we want to receive in our method in Ruby. Let me like tell you what I mean. For example, we have a touch method in Ruby, and this touch method receive animal, and then animal calls a touch method on the animal and touch our cat. It purrs, touch our fox, it run away. But yes, we like kind of pass to our touch method two two objects of the same like animal type, but we Ruby don't requires us to do this. We can simplify things and remove inheritance from our classes and just define that. Run away. Fox new animal cat and touch fox. So our cat and fox objects, instances of cat and fox classes, and cat and fox classes are not inherited from animal class, but the polymorphism still works and is still applied for our both classes. Yes, we use the same method touch, because like we define it like this. Yes, because they are different. For example, if we need cat and fox class, polymorphism is when object of different types of the same type act differently. For example, we have two objects, cat and fox. They are both kind of when we inherit our cat from animal and our fox from animal, we can say that our cat object and our fox object are kind of animal. They have type animal, but they act differently. When I touch cat, it purrs. When I touch fox, it run away. That's what polymorphism mean. The like two objects of the same type animal act differently. And what I say that technically in Ruby we don't need inheritance in order to achieve polymorphism. Our objects can be polymorphic even without even if they are not inherited from the same class.
Do you mean that method names are used in all the file?
Method, do I mean method names?
Method names are global. I mean that they are not defined for each.
They are defined for each class. Touch is not global. It's like, well, maybe you're confused because I called def touch here. We can call it, for example, do thing animal touch, and so we have a do thing method, and we can do thing with fox, and we can do thing with cat. So the touch method is not global. I mean, the touch methods of cat and fox classes are not global. They are local for our cat and fox classes. But we don't need to inherit from animal in order to use them as a parameter for our do thing class. For our do thing method, sorry.
How do we link our child method with our parent method?
We can redefine like
A program should understand that we mean
like know-how. We just create completely different classes with the same set of methods, and like we use it. Mm, we don't need to inherit them in order to pass them as the variable to different methods. For example, our method doThing, like no need for it to know about the type of object we pass to it. It knows nothing about our f object, about our c object, about class of those objects. For example, we can create a, I don't know, dog, and dog also can be touched, and it says oof. And we can create an instance of dog, and then if we in other strongly typed languages, it would be impossible to pass our dog to doThing method, but in Ruby we can do this and it works.
Where do we define doThing methods? In parent class?
I just defined it like right here. doThing. I defined it previously like this. We can define it like out of class, not in class, but here at the top level. So encapsulation means we have data and we have logic in our objects. Inheritance means we can inherit logic and data from parent classes, and polymorphism means that our different objects objects of the same time can act differently, but in Ruby it's not required to inherit in order to achieve polymorphism for our objects. Yeah, the next thing I want to talk about is advanced. Like it's not advanced. It's just well, it's more about encapsulation. A little bit more things about encapsulation. Let's get back to our animal, cat, and fox. We don't need to redefine touch. So we have a animal class, and it assume that all animals by default run away when we touch them. But for cat class, we inherited cat class from our animal class and redefined method touch. So cat no longer run away, but it purrs instead. Let's talk a little bit about visibility of our methods. Animal has touch method, cat has touch method, fox has no method, but it also has touch method because we inherited from animal. By default, when we defined methods in our classes, we can create an object of class and call those methods. That's what I was doing like previously. Cat new, get touch. But that's by default. When we add a method to our class, by default it's public. Any other any code can call those methods. But we can change this default behavior. For example, let me a little bit complicate the thing. I'll add a initializer to our animal, and this initializer will receive a variable. For example, let it receive variable name. And when we touch the animal, it will say what the name of animal that ran away. Something like this. Let's quickly check it. When our initializer receive an argument, we need to pass it to the new method when we do fox.new. So for example, let's call it Ruby. Expected 0. Why did it happen? Shell it's not real. Fox new Ruby. And now when we touch our fox, it says Ruby run away. So our initializer received the name, put it to the instance variable name, and then we can use this instance variable. We can complicate it further. For example, we can add nice name. We can add a separate method called nice name, and then we would capitalize if it's. I'm not sure Ruby has this capitalize method, but let's check it. Fox new Ruby F touch. Yes, we use name, but we need to use nice name. What's wrong? It's not capitalized, it's upkeys. Capitalize, it's already capitalized, because capitalize means the first letter is big. Fox F touch. Yes, we can see that our when we touch our fox, the name of the fox is in uppercase. All the letters uppercased. But since I added a new method called nice name, I can call it something like this, nice name, and it will return our uppercased name of the fox. What if we don't want to expose this nice name method to the world? For example, we don't want anybody to call this method. We can do this. We can use a special keyword called private, and all the methods I write after the private keyword, they become private. Nobody can call them except of our object. Let's quickly check it. we touch, we still see the name uppercased, but if we now call nice name, we get an error, and it says that private method called, and like we should not do this. Why do you think we may need this? We may need to create private methods. Like, why not to say that, well, everybody can use nice name? Well, the reason for this is encapsulation. We want our object to have specific set of methods, and in order to keep it maintainable. For example, if we in the future want to change our nice name methods to something else, nice name to name capitalized. If our name was private, it means nobody in code ever used it. For example, I wrote this animal class, then I gave it to my colleagues and they used it for whatever reason they needed. If our nice name is not private, they may start using it, and then in the future when I need to rewrite it, it would be much harder for me to rewrite it, because, well, everybody use it, and if I change this code, everybody will need to change this code. That's why I may say that my nice name was private, like nobody should use it, and only my class or my object use my private methods, and then in that case, if nobody use it, I can like very easy rewrite it and like give a new version of animal class to my colleagues, and they will not need to change anything. That's private methods. Is it clear? Do you have any questions related to private methods? Let me change to nice name back. Ruby has public methods, it has private methods, and also it has protected methods. Let me change it to something like def protected. Do you know what does protected mean? Have you heard about something like this in other languages? Yeah, and what does it mean? Yes, that's true. If our method is protected, our I don't know, enemies or my colleagues, they cannot use this protected method. Let's quickly check it. If I tell you truth, touch f nice name. So nobody still can use our nice name method, but we also have like cat class, and both our cat and our fox is inherited from animal, and make friend with animal nice name and animal nice name are friends. So I added a new method to our cat class. It says make friend with. To this method I will pass any animal. For example, I will put our fox to this method, and this method should output the name of our cat and the name of our fox, that they are friends. As you remember, nobody can call nice name on animal on our animals, except of the classes that inherit, except of the classes of the same kind. I say that cat and fox are like kind of animal. They have like they inherit from the same class animal, and that's why our protected method nice name of fox will be available for our cat. Let me quickly demonstrate it. Make friend with fox. So as you see that we have no error when our cat called method nice name of our fox. But if we try to directly call nice name of fox, it won't work. That's why we need protected methods. So children of the same class can use those protected methods of each other. So we discussed public, private, and protected methods. Do you have any questions about this OOP, about encapsulation, inheritance? Yes.
Can they be private or
Variables? Well, by default, they are private. For example, our animal has name. Our animals have name variables, but we cannot call it directly for f name or f or cat name. They like it's not possible to access those variables. They are kind of private for our objects, but as always, we can define a separate methods. For example, I'll define a method name, which will return the value of our instance variable, like this. So if I load name. So now I can call name, but it's not a variable. It's a method. And the same thing if we want to redefine our name, new name. Ruby has, I don't know, the special syntax for, I don't know, for setters. We can create a method called name with equal sign at the end, and name equal new name. be Fox. Friend name Ruby F name. So we kind of created a well, you can call it setter, but well, the idea is when you put the equal sign at the end of method name, you can write code like this: f.name space, then equal sign, and then a new name. That's kind of a special syntax of Ruby. Good question. We cannot use multiple inheritance, but as you remember, we have modules, right? So we can kind of create multiple modules. It's not that I recommend it, but we can create different modules and then include them in classes. For example, we can create a module touchable. And touchable module have, by the way, a very good question. I should probably mention it. Touchable has a touch method which does puts away no puts word, and we may have a module called runner. Def run puts run away. Let me remove this. So then we have again we have class cat, and let our cat be include let our cat be touchable, and cat also can run. Let it be a runner. As you noticed, I used well, it's a method call word. So I need to define this method def word in our cat, and this method word returns meow. I don't know. Do you understand that I don't need to write return in order to return something from a method? I mean, somebody told you, or you just know? Well, in Ruby, when we want to return any value from a method, we don't need to write. We can, but we don't need to write return keyword. We may omit it. I defined a method word because our touchable module use this method word. And if you are familiar with this keyword in other languages, in Ruby we can write something like this: self word. But we may also as well omit it. Let us quickly check that it works. New get run get touch. So we what we just did is like kind of multiple inheritance, or we call it like mixins. We like included two different modules to our class. It works, I guess it works like a multiple inheritance. It's the same evil.
What will happen if touchable will have method like foo and runner will have method foo, and
the last will rewrite. There are like special syntax if you want to, for example, For example, if you didn't write cat, somebody like a library owner or a library developer created a cat for you. And then you create your own class, I don't know, kitty inherited from cat. And you want, for example, it's very easy if let's assume our touch well, there is I won't do this right now, but there is a special syntax to change the order of redefining methods, and like I can send the link if you want to read more. So I don't make errors on a live presentation, you know. What else? What else? We have classes, we have modules, we can include our modules to classes. What I didn't tell you about is about class methods and extending classes. You probably, if you're familiar with other languages, you probably heard of something like a static methods, right? I like rarely do this, but we may define a static method, or in Ruby we call it class method, for our classes. We use it like this: def self dot say meow. This self dot and the name of the method, it means that say meow method is a class method, and we now should not call it on an object or on an instance. We should call it on class. What I mean is let's create a instance get say meow. It will say that we don't have this method, undefined method set say meow, but we can call cat say meow, and it works like this. I think we rarely need to add those like class methods. One reason for those class methods may be if we have, for example, class animal. Self create animal. And no, let it be like create animal. And what we also can do is to define our class cat def touch meow and class fox def touch puts maybe we know what does the fox say, I guess. And then we in our create animal class method we can do something like if run So it will either create a cat object or fox object when we call create animal on our animal class. Animal create animal. What's wrong with this code? No, create animal should return an instance of animal, but instead it returned nil for me. Yes, probably else if was the error. Animal create animal create. So as we can see, we created cat, fox, cat, fox, fox. Our animal class loves cat more. Well, now it's foxes. Well, something like this. If we need to, well, I see the case for class methods for like creating objects. Sometimes we may well, if we know that we need to if we need an instance of cat, we can use cat new as well. So, or maybe fox if you want to have fox, it will work. But cat fox, we can use it directly, and it means that we also can use classes for namespacing, not only modules but classes. We probably can make our cat and foxes private, so it's like another level of privacy we can. I probably shouldn't show you this because you probably will not use it in the near future, but we can make our then if I shouldn't, I won't. So we can use classes for namespacing, and we can use class methods for like for different things, and one of the useful thing to use class methods is in instantiate like different objects. Any other questions? Like I can leave demo right now so we can talk about it. More questions about classes, modules? Yeah. They work like the same, I guess. If you let's try it, right? So I don't.
In touchable, you call the method word.
Mm-hmm.
And how should we understand that it's a method, not variable?
Like all we write is methods. Puts is a method. Word is a method. Well, if I write something like this, word equal something like this, then the word here would be this local variable.
We can use, for example,
Initializer.
variable.
We cannot use. Like, do you mean like this or?
Variable without инициализировано, что ли? Я не помню, как описать variable.
We can try to use like
Просто переменная, которую мы опишем.
let's try it, right? We can try it. Class animal include touchable. Lies word equal. So we have a module touchable, and then we use instance variable word in our method touch, and we define this method in initializer of animal. So when we create an object of animal and then call touch, it should say meow, right? Meow. I guess if we do not define this this variable, it will say like an empty world. Well, it will be, the meow will be nil, the word will be nil here, and then puts will output an empty string instead of nil. Like, let's quickly check it if I'm correct, because maybe I'm not. Yeah, the empty string. So unless it's until it's defined, it's nil. But I don't recommend to do this, because it's like, it's, I don't know, it's hard to change this code later if we use a lot of instance variable like this instead of methods, instead of like getter method. Then it would be hard to maintain such code. I can show you one more thing about variables. Def name and def name new name. New name capitalize. Let it be like this. Well, one more thing about setter. I call this method with equal sign at the end setter. We may add any logic we want to this method. For example, I capitalize the word we receive. For example, if we receive a name started from a like small letter, but we know that all the names should be capitalized, should have a big letter at the beginning. Like, we try to change this. Let me quickly show how it works. One.rb animal new name, it's nil. If we set a name to Ruby and dot name, it's Ruby capitalized. If our classes have a lot of variables like this, for example, right now we have only name, but maybe we have a maybe we have a date of birth or age or health variable. Well, we may have a lot of variables. Ruby has a special syntax to make our getters and setters short. For example, we may use utter reader for our name variable. Utter reader name does the same thing as our method name. We can remove our method name, and the code will work as we expect it to work. Name. So we removed our getter, and it still works. And the same, we can do the same thing with our setter. I'll do this. We can do the same thing with the setter. Instead of setter, we can use, it's a special syntax of Ruby, I guess, 99%, utter writer name. So we removed our setter, and now we have utter reader, utter writer. And now, well, let me still restart it. Load. New name Ruby name. So it still works, but we cannot add any special logic for this name. If previously we were capitalizing our name, but now we just like just set it to the variable.